What was your first successful spell? There was a guy in high school that I had a crush on, and I just wanted him to talk to me. So I did a spell that had him come over, and he kind of sat down with the group of us, and yeah. He wasn't very nice, but the spell worked. How did you feel about casting your first circle? I don't really do the casting, quote unquote, of a circle, but I have been in a group setting where other people have, and they were very over the top with it. They were almost too over the top with it. It kind of made me feel like they were taking it so seriously, it was almost comical. Where do you buy your herbs? Currently, I buy them at a tea shop here in town called the Mystic Garden. Before, about 10 years ago or so, I used to order them from the Magical Blend, but I don't order from those people anymore for a bunch of reasons. What advice given to you would you pass on because of its impact on your path? I've never really been given any advice, so I guess I would just pass on the advice of take everything with a grain of salt and trust your gut. If they made a movie of your life, who would play you? Toni Claudette. Did you see her in Clock Watchers? Yeah. Or maybe Emma Thompson. No, Toni Claudette. Is circle casting necessary every single time? No. How do you handle rejection from a fellow witch who refuses to do any workings for you? Just, that's cool, man. Okay. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. They don't want to work with you, they don't want to work with you, you know? Any past witch, famous or not famous, that inspires you? I had this one ex-boyfriend who was an occultist and a necromancer, so I guess he kind of, on some level, I guess I would say him. I also knew this couple who were shamans, so I guess I would have to say them as well. When dating, how do you tell a new lover that you are a witch? Okay, so I just actually started dating again, and I put it right out there. I've got Wiccan listed for this one dating site that's a horror story in itself. I'm not Wiccan, but Wiccan was the only pagan option for the dating site, and I've got it right out there. If a guy actually makes it to my apartment, he'll see my altar, and you know, then you can have the conversation. But I usually find a way to, if I think the guy is going to be sticking around for any amount of time, I will find a way to bring it up. Usually with the tarot cards, and go from the tarot cards and go from there. And, you know, if a guy makes it to my apartment and he sees the altar and it freaks him out, then, well, what the hell? He's only here for the night anyway, right? That's so bad, I know, right? What about you is unwitchy? I am a huge Sex and the City fan and a huge, huge Jane Austen fan. Have you ever had full contact with your deity, and if so, what happened? I tell a part of a story that happened with the ex-boyfriend who's the occultist necromancer, and how he channeled what I believe was Loki. I've told a few people over the years the entire details of the story, but I'm not going to do that now. Let's just say it freaked me out, it freaked him out, and yeah. Your opinions on initiation rituals. I'm not in a coven. I had a brief year where I was involved with a coven, but I never actually made it to the final initiation, so I don't really have anything to say on that. Ever have a spell go horribly wrong? Yes, a couple of them, and one ended up with a really bad love triangle, and I'll just leave it at that. What are ways you keep yourself grounded? I'm really bad at that. I'm really, really bad at that. But yeah, I'm really bad at that. What do you prefer for divination and why? I prefer tarot, but I do have a Ouija board. I do use it. I do have runes. I do use them. And I do sometimes use a pendulum. But I prefer tarot cards, and I love studying the symbols of like, what does it mean when the cobweb on the door? What does it mean when a broom falls? That kind of stuff. I love that stuff. Most creative spell, and what did you use? It was spell a friend of mine did. It was her spell. She came up with it herself, and she used jumping jacks, the little kids' toy things where you bounce the ball and pick up the jacks. I wish I had written it down. She was so good at coming up with stuff. If you could pick a certain tradition to fit your practice into, like being Druid or Celtic or Wiccan, what would it be? Hoodoo? Are you a solitaire or in a coven? I'm a solitaire. I have been a solitaire for pretty much the whole 30 years. Not quite 30 years, almost 30 years. over 25 years that I've been doing this. Favorite time of day for spell work? Dusk and dawn. Do you have any interest in deities that you do not work with, and if so, which? Kali. But I did work with her at one point, so I guess that doesn't really count. Who do I not work with that I... No, I'm just going to say Kali. How do you organize your herbs and ingredients? I kind of don't anymore. I used to have this really great cupboard, and I had this multi-drawer dresser that I converted, but I had to give it up. I had to get rid of them when I moved, so now everything is just kind of shoved into one area of the kitchen cupboard because I don't have space for anything. When buying witchy items, do you choose them or do they choose you? Choose you. It depends. If I'm out and I'm like, got so much money in my pocket and I'm looking for specific things, then I will choose. And I will usually choose between the method of what speaks to me and what I can afford. Then there's been times where things have literally fallen off the shelf at my feet, and I'm like, okay, I'm meant to have that. Which I talked about in one of my videos before, when I think it was how I bought this or why I bought this. Favorite witchy shop, and do they have an online store? No, they do not, and it would be the local here in town, Mystic Garden. They do have a Facebook page, though. YouTube burnout. Have you ever had it? No, but I've had general blogging burnout where I refuse to blog for months at a time. What is your favorite time of year for rituals and Sabbaths? October. And around here, October is a season all its own. What can you not witch without? Pen and paper. You have to have pen and paper because if nothing else, you gotta take your notes. Any witches in the family? Not that I am aware of, but my sister for a very brief time was Wiccan, which she gave it up when she met her husband. What, if any, ways could you do dark magic and still respect Wicca? I'm not Wiccan, so I don't know if that really applies to me. Do you use astrology, and if so, how? I use basic astrology. I would love to say that I'm better at it than I really am, but the math screws me up every single time. For general, just, the real basic stuff. The moon will be in Pisces next week, and it means, this, or Venus will be in Taurus, and that's a good time for love spells, that type of thing. I'm very, very basic. If you were a god or goddess, who would you be? Kali. What do you think about raising kids in the craft? If you have kids, then go for it. I personally do not have children, nor do I plan on having any, so it doesn't really apply to me.